Welcome, everyone. My name is Charles Xavier with Linked Senior Activity Strong. We are very excited to be with all of you for the third Validation World Congress. And before we get started, I wanted to invite Vicky de Klerk-Ruben, the Executive Director of the Validation Training Institute, just to say a few words to welcome us before we get started with our program. Vicky?
Thank you so much, Charles, for giving us another year of fantastic partnership and cooperation. I'm very excited about this program. It's also a new partnership for us, working with people who are living with different forms of dementia. I couldn't be happier. Also because my mother, Naomi File, just passed away last December. And I know she would have loved to be here and joined us for this event. So learn a lot, have a lot of fun, and go, Charles.
Thank you so much for these very touching words, Vicky. It's truly an honor to have somewhat participated, but also, being part of the validation journey. And just so you know, I'm personally very proud of that. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of it. So as a reminder, today is the Validation World Congress, the third one. This is a multi-session program that starts right now at 12 p.m. Eastern. And like Vicky said, this one is very special because we have this special partnership, and I will introduce Brenda Robert in a second, but this very special partnership with the National Council of Dementia Minds. Before I get started, just a few reminders in terms of the housekeeping part. So we can earn up to 3 NAB, NCAP, and CTRC, and or NCDPC credits. To earn the credits, you need to attend a full session, so as few as 1 session, but also as many as 3 if you want 3 credits. And you would need to get this credit, you would need to fill out the information by midnight on Friday, so that we can fill in your certificate of attendance for up to 3 hours again. Please know that due to the very large number of attendees today, we will process the certificates and they will be sent out via email throughout next week. So from the 26th, which is Monday, until Friday, March 1st. And each certificate is going to be emailed separately. If you have any questions, please direct them to webinars with an S, webinars at linkedsenior.com. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. And on Zoom, we obviously use the chat, which gets really busy, which is great. But if you have a question specifically for our panelists, I would invite you to use the Q&A feature. And as a reminder, on the chat, if you want everyone to see your valuable contribution, make sure that you use the drop-down everyone instead of just the panelists. And as we always say, and Vicky reminded us of the importance of this, have fun. We're here to learn and have fun. So with that, it's with an immense pleasure and honor to welcome Brenda Roberts with the National Council of Dementia Mind, who's going to lead our first session today. What do people living with cognitive change want from their care partners? And I want to thank and welcome Stephen, Kristen, and Donna to this session. Brenda, team, take it away, and thank you so much for being with us. And yeah, thanks, Brenda.
Have to unmute myself.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm super proud to introduce the panelists we have today. We're all part, as Charles said, of National Council of Dementia Minds. I happen to be the executive director. We are so proud to be the first national nonprofit organization founded and governed by people living with dementia. So what can you expect in the next hour? We're going to quickly go around and have the 3 panelists introduce themselves. So we'll ask you to keep it kind of short. Then we're going to watch a video that features persons living with dementia talking about care partnerships. Then you're going to listen into a conversation that we have, continuing what we see in the video. And then you'll have the opportunity to ask questions and we'll be happy to answer them. And I know you're going to have a ton of questions and you're going to be wanting more, but we'll do the best that we can to address everything that you want. So I'm going to go around. Donna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Donna Denham. I'm from Albertville, Alabama. I was diagnosed in February of 2022 at the age of 48 with Lewy body dementia.
Great. Thank you for being with us. Stephen.
My name is Stephen Barbieri. I used to live in California. I've been living here in Idaho in the last 2.5 years. I was diagnosed at the age of 51 with CTE dementia, and I'll be 64 later this year.
Woohoo. Great job. Chris Ann.
Hello, my name is Chris Ann Moss, and I live in the west side of Michigan. And my journey for diagnosis started in 2018 and was finally confirmed in 2020 with prodromal Lewy body, probable Lewy body dementia. Currently, I have mild cognitive impairment.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen and start our video, and then we'll be back to our panelists.
For me, the difference, I have been a caregiver and I have a care partner. For me, the difference is,
so we're not seeing your video.
as long as I am able,
I think you just maybe share it on your main screen.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
Screen. Share screen 2. Share. Now, hopefully I did the sound too.
Yeah, that looks good. I think you're good. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
for me, the difference, I have been a caregiver and I have a care partner. For me, the difference is as long as I am able, I should have a care partner to help me with decisions. When you become a caregiver, which I will need when I can no longer make those decisions for myself and somebody has to make them for me. Where with care partner, it's more of the two of you or three, however many, working together as a team. And I think that is much more, for me, I would much rather have a care partner than a giver because that means I'm in a better place.
I would basically second really everything that Cindy said. A caregiver to me is somebody who is taking direction from somebody else. They don't necessarily directly know your wants, your wishes, what you can or can't do. They're being directed by a third party, especially if you as the patient can't communicate or they don't understand how you communicate. A care partner is somebody closer, oftentimes a family member, hopefully a spouse that you have discussed things with of what your wishes are.
Early on, oftentimes, when we first get that diagnosis, the people around us get the diagnosis as well. And so they want to jump in. For example, in my household, my daughter's an RN and she instantly wanted to take over my life. My daughter-in-law kind of did the minimizing. Oh, that happens to me, trying to make me feel normal. That happens to me all the time. So this went on, and it was just a vortex of craziness. So I had my psychologist come to my home and sit at the table with all of us in one spot. And she facilitated because we had talked about things I wanted to bring to the table. And one of them was the minimizer. One of them was talking about the denial, which is a normal process, but it shouldn't last forever. And then, for my daughter, I was able to kind of really get across to her that there's going to be a lot of time down the road that I'm really going to need your help. But for now, let me be independent. Let me make my blips and my mistakes, because in the big picture, they really don't matter.
My main care partner is my wife, Tracy. And the beautiful things that she does is she allows me to stay in my routines. My routines are extremely important for myself and probably most of us to stay within our routine. So she allows that. The next thing is she knows how important and I think a few people talked about this, like Libby talked about driving to the gym. I just got home from the gym with Tracy. The nice thing about it is that she understands I have a better day if I start my day off by going to the gym, getting that natural oxygen rush to my brain. I feel a lot better. My vision feels stronger. I just have a much better day. She's actually started going to the gym with me now on a regular basis. She also understands noise is a big complication, I guess, for me when we go into restaurants or we go to different events. We'll walk into a restaurant and she'll look around and she'll hear the noise. She'll look at me like thumb up or thumb down. And then she'll go up to the waitress, like, is there tables outside? There's less noise, no speakers going on or whatever. So she really takes the front on that when she, when we check into restaurants. So I really appreciate that.
I would say, like, as far as like caretaking, that in our early stage to moderate, that you don't be too overly observed. You have to do things, as many things as you can, make errors on it, and they will let you know. But to give you the space to be free. If you be so over the shoulder, it drives us nuts. But if you just give us the freedom, once you get that diagnosis, you have to believe in yourself and be confident. Breathe. As we progress, things we're not going to grasp like we used to, but early those that is just starting, to make sure that the understanding, respect me, give me this, let me do this on my own. I don't need you to help me with that. And that helps us a long way.
Yeah, I'll say the one thing that if I haven't already said it, is I told Forrest, my husband, I said, before you say no, this was like a New Year's thing. I said, before you say no, hear me out. And long story short, I am roller skating again after a 40-year hiatus. I used to be really damn good. I was like gonna be in a roller derby way back when. And then I stopped for 40 years, and it sounds insane. I saw Arnie clapping, but that muscle memory, I got all the gear again. I bought skates. We got me all outfitted, and it was like nothing. It was like no time had passed. I was cautious because, I'm 5'8" instead of what I was as a kid, but it has just, it's been really good for me, guys.
I do have 9 siblings, but they live so far away, so I cannot really rely on them. However, in my community, I do tell my neighbors and my friends that I do have dementia. And I am so blessed in the sense that they understand the issue. And I have to say much more than my brothers and sisters, because they are in a state of denial that one of their family members do have this really stigmatizing illness, disease, sort of. So what I do is I consider them my care partners because whenever I need something, they are here, always able to help. I'm no longer able to look at my computer because whenever something goes wrong, I don't know where to go. I'm so lucky that the couples, the people that live in a townhome near my place, are always willing and available to come over for half an hour and whatever. And recently, we had a little bit of a snowstorm, and of course, I no longer can shovel my sidewalk. And without being asked, the next door neighbors do. They came, salted, shoveled, and salted my sidewalk. I consider this part of the dementia-friendly community. And next door neighbors, I feel like they are here to help if they know that I do need it. So as somebody said, how do you don't look like you have dementia? Yes, that is true. But if you tell your next door neighbor that occasionally you may need help, they're most willing to help. Thank you.
Although
Okay, so that was our jump starter video to help us talk about care partners, and they introduced the concept of caregivers and care partners. So I'm just going to turn to our panelists and just ask if they would like to expand on anything that was said that you'd like to share before we go into asking questions of the group. Stephen.
I know we're talking about care partners and caregivers, and sometimes that's interchangeable with our spouse. But my phrase is, I want my spouse to be my spouse for as long as possible. I want Tracy to be Tracy. I know there'll be a time when I will need a caregiver or a care partner. And at that time, we'll bring somebody in. But again, I want Tracy to be my spouse for as long as possible. We're trying to be a little bit proactive. I know there's times, you hear you're going to need to get your butt wiped or something. So we've taken a step ahead on that. We put bidets in both of our bathrooms now already, so that I'm used to them. It's like a normal process. So when it comes a time when I have to use the bathroom and I need some assistance, they can just push buttons to take care of that. That's on the bidet or whatnot and stuff. But again, I think it's very important that your spouse stays your spouse for as long as possible.
Well, Stephen, that's so important. In the moment we're diagnosed or folks receive a diagnosis, people stopped referring to me as Mark's wife and they called me his care partner. And I was like, what? But Chris-Ann, what do you have?
I can certainly appreciate the care partner and caregiver, and the distinction, how people distinguish that in the video. But I think about us, and I really want anybody who is a part of my care to really include me, to partner with me. And we talked about all of this before, but meet us where we are, join our reality. I think that's important. So perhaps they have to do more of the heavy lifting, if you will, but even in that, there's still a partnership. And I just think that's really important to do that.
So, so that's a partnership throughout the whole journey.
Okay. Yes. Even when I may not recognize somebody, I think that's still going to be very important. And part of that is join my reality, read the room, so to speak, and join us there.
Donna, do you have anything to share about care partnership, especially in relationship with your husband at all, or any comments before we go to questions?
I just kind of to piggyback off what Chris-Ann and Stephen said, I think it's important, especially when you're early on in the diagnosis like I am, to we just make modifications, and like they said, don't take over. I can still do lots of things. Now it may take me a lot longer and it may not be right, but I think the key is just to just kind of go with the flow and let me participate as long as I can. That's very important to me.
Okay, Chris-Ann and then Stephen.
Brenda, I just wanted to add to that. It's important to me that the people who love me don't sacrifice their own health. When we look at the long-term health outcomes of people that are taking care of us or partnering with us, they oftentimes develop serious health consequences. And I don't want that for them. And I think it's important that we don't think of one person. We really need a tribe of people that can participate. And that tribe needs to be formed now while we're still with it. And I think that's critically important. And then understanding that there are different types of dementias, and with that is different cognitive changes. So with Lewy body, it's a lack of focus. So if I really concentrate, I will remember. But somebody with perhaps Alzheimer's won't. So those little, learn about the dementia and learn about that person, a tribe, and don't sacrifice yourself.
Got it. Stephen, what'd you have on your mind?
Well, Chris Ann, which is the nice thing about having us on panels, when people say things, it triggers other things. So I really don't like being on things by myself. So this is perfect. Like Chris Ann said about not sacrificing yourself as a caregiver or spouse. I try and make sure my wife gets away with her friends every once in a while. As a matter of fact, she leaves tomorrow morning for a week to go spend some time with her girlfriends. Well, during that time, both neighbors on both sides of our house know that Tracy's going to be gone, and they'll check in on me. We have other friends. She set up golf buddies. So while she's gone, I've got 4 or 5 golf dates with some of my friends. She knows I'll be going to the gym and everything at the same time. The other phrase that's very important for all of us is we have a phrase that says, nothing about me without me. I want to be included in every decision while I can make that decision while I'm here. I hate when people talk to Tracy and I'm in the room and they'll ask, well, how's Stephen doing? What do you think we should do about this? How's he doing? Do we need to do this for him? And I'm standing literally right there where I can hear the conversation. So again, I think it's very important that you still remember we're still here. And again, it's nothing about me without me. I want to be involved.
Great point. Any reflections, Chrisanne and Donna, before I move on? Okay. Well, Stephen, I know how much you love being told when you're wrong, when you make a mistake.
Yeah. Okay. On that one, I have a hard time because I'm very analytical and I like to be very precise or whatnot. But I know sometimes I make mistakes. The thing that irritates me the most with
Careful.
she's with eardrops away, is that when I'm corrected over something that doesn't need to be corrected. Like I say the wrong words all the time because my word finding is very poor. I hear the wrong words. Like she'll say one word and I thought she said something else. So I'll say I'm going out to the backyard and she sees me walk out to the garage. And then all of a sudden I'll come back in and she'll say, I thought you told me you were going out to the backyard to get. I said, no, I went out to the garage. I didn't need to be corrected. Obviously, I said the wrong thing and I was going something. So she knew, or if your caregiver knows what you meant to say, or they know you used the wrong word, there's no reason to correct us on simple things. Now, if it's a matter of life or death, or I'm going to hurt myself or whatever, it doesn't matter. If I say it's 3 o'clock and it's really 6, just let it go. There's no reason to say, well, why do you think that? No, just let it go on. And again, that's super frustrating because first of all, I don't think I said backyard. I think I said garage. So right away, I'm going to be argumentative about something. And then you don't ever want to argue with somebody with dementia because I'll take it to my grave. I mean, I'll keep going and going and going until I prove myself right. We'll argue a lot. And I said, you know what? We instead of dropping that red flag like you see on commercials, let's ask Google. So if we're arguing on something, I'll say Google says this and that or whatever. So and again, it's very difficult to argue with somebody. I think Chris Ann used the phrase "come into our world." Just accept it as truth, and just roll with it.
Great.
I think guiding us in a direction is much more important than pushing us in a certain way. And
Help us get to self-discovery. Like you said, guide us that direction so we self-discover it. Oh, maybe I did say that versus no, yeah.
Perfect. Well, we have a couple questions now that you jump started the folks thinking about care partners, and they're good questions. So let's see. The first one is, when I have a question about my loved one, how my loved one is feeling, I sometimes scared to ask them where they are. How do you feel when your care partner asks you questions of how you're feeling? Donna.
I got a comment. I think it's very, for me, it's very encouraging, but I think it's also in the way that you present it. I think with any relationship, there's a time and a place. And so maybe if the anxiety level is up, give it a second. but it makes me feel a little bit more seen when my husband recognizes like something is off with her. Instead of just brushing it under the rug, because I think no matter what we look like or where we, even if we look like we're having a really good day, there's so much more going on behind the scenes that we're probably not being upfront about. So just sometimes that interaction, I think, helps us to just get it out. And for me personally, just getting it out, kind of gets it off my mind, and I'm not building up something. I'm kind of freeing it a little bit for myself. So I would think just you do it, but do it gently, and in a time when when we seem ready to receive questions, because sometimes I'm just not there, and I need a minute, and I try to be honest about that. Like I just need a second, to get past where I'm at now.
Great. So does anybody else want to respond? I'll be happy to ask the question again, Chris Ann.
I think it goes back to that read the room, and that takes a while to learn. But are you okay is a legitimate question by all means. But if you look around and see what's going on, and I'm, whatever, perhaps it's the light's too bright, or perhaps the noise is too much, because sometimes I can't articulate that I'm not okay, and I don't know, or I can't get it out fast enough. That's, kind of makes me crazy. And also the yes or no answers, or either or excuse me, questions that are yes or no, or either or. And don't answer them as you're asking also. A whole bunch of options, because by the time you get done, I'm like, that overstimulation is so real. So it's a lot to ask, but it's greatly appreciated.
The read the room was so important, because that to me reinforced everything we talk about is you have to know the person. You have to know, to be able to read the room, to read them, you have to know the person.
Well, I stole that from my son. He's always saying, gotta read the room. So
yep. Stephen, your hand popped up. What you got?
Again, I like being on a panel where people say things that triggers, just like reading the room, watch for signals. Tracy knows after 7 o'clock, I'm not as sharp. It tends to be a tougher time for me. So at dinner time, I always say the prayer when we sit down and have dinner, but it's kind of a clue when we sit down, we're going to have dinner, and I look at her and said, can you say prayers tonight? Because I'm either having an off moment or an off time. That's a signal. And I've tried to remind her, if I say that at the dinner table, I'm pretty sure the rest of the evening it's going to go that same direction. So I'm having an off moment at that time. Another thing I do a lot sometimes is I close my eyes and I'll start rubbing my forehead or things. So there's obviously things that you can notice just by people's body language. Back to what Chris Ann said about reading the room. And again, she knows if I ask her to say the prayers, the rest of the evenings they're going to be off. If I close my eyes, I'm rubbing my thing, I'm something stressing me out, or I can't focus on something. I start playing with my ears. I'm being oversensitized. There's too much noise in the room, or there's too much commotion, or it was quiet. Now all of a sudden the noise level has increased because more people came in the room, or the kids came in from outside, and I started to get a little bit more agitated. And then that's the opportunity for her to say, hey, how are you doing? And maybe removing me from that thing by making us suggest, hey, let's go outside and go for a walk, and trying to change the situation.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question. Okay. How do you deal with the anger and unfairness of your situation? So do you feel anger? It's unfair? Go for it, Chris Ann.
I have not felt that way in my, I just haven't. And I know that's, people say, are you in denial? I'm not. And perhaps it's my history and my career and whatever. I've seen so much. But, why not me is my thought. I'm not that special. Every one of us is going to get something. If you were born, end of life will come. And it's just what it is. So I see this as just a chapter in my life, and I'm going to live the best life I can with this. I do have some blue times, and I've learned to say, what are you grateful for right now? Find something that I'm grateful for. And but I do understand people who are angry and dismayed. I think that's, when we look at the stages of grieving, that's what this is. It's grief. We've lost some of our health. And I think each of us would say that we have those stages of grief as we lose capabilities as well. And I do allow myself that, but you know, I just,
Yeah.
I was relieved to get the diagnosis because I knew there was something wrong and didn't know quite what it was.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, that the relief is really, it's like mixed, right? It's like it's a relief to get the diagnosis, but it's still, and I like that you said you're blue sometimes. And I have a friend who's living with dementia, and he says, every once in a while I throw myself a pity party and I go there for a little while. But the key is I don't allow myself to stay there. He's like, I throw it, I go to it, and I leave, So, we do have that.
Brenda, I think it's so important because if we don't get back to that, we are losing what the potential good joy that we can have, those moments that are precious.
Right.
And if we stay feeling sorry for ourselves or angry, then we lose them.
I just have to ask, it's not on here, and I'll come back to you, Stephen. It's not on our list of questions, but does dealing with the anger, the unfairness, the pity parties, what does the peer support like Dementia Minds do? Is that helpful?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Very, I think you have to give yourself that grieving process, but you've got to find some way to have peace with yourself. And when you don't, especially at my age, there's not a lot in my community that is going through this. And so when you're connecting with people and you're like, oh, these people really get it. They get what I'm going through. They get the frustrations. And no matter how supportive your care partners are, there are things that my husband Craig just cannot process because he's not dealing with it. He's dealing with it in a different, also traumatic way. But I think just plugging in and giving yourself like, oh, these people get it. I'm not crazy. Like this all makes sense. And then allowing yourself to just realize that our time is going to be shorter because of our illnesses, and just kind of reflecting on, am I going to allow myself to be angry, or am I going to it's been a very fresh dose of perspective for us, because it's like, this is not what we wanted, but this is where we are. And what do we do to make the best of it? And I think surrounding yourself with people in similar situations helps you make the best of it, because you might be feeling down in the dumps and you get around other positive people that are in that same situation. And for me personally, it's very uplifting.
Yeah, we can go to Stephen, but there was a kind of a follow-up question to that specifically for you, Donna. It says, where do you find support? And you're basically saying with other people living with dementia.
Yes, basically, because like I said, in our situation, we don't even really have a lot of friends whose parents are going through this. And both of my parents went through this. So, we rely heavily on each other because nobody really gets it. So fortunately, it's kind of been a bond building experience between my husband and I, because it's like, this sucks, but what do we do about it? But then I think that your second layer is people in a similar situation, because they have perspective that you can't really get from friends, well-meaning or not. It's just a different ball game.
Yeah. Okay, Stephen, what you got? Thanks, Donna.
I'll use an analogy. If you go out of the country to a foreign country where they're all speaking a different language, and then you hear somebody speak in English, you can make that connection. So I use the phrase, we speak dementia. So like I say, you go to a party, you hear somebody that you can communicate with because they're talking your same language, you're going to make that stronger connection. You're going to be drawn to them. And that's how it is with Dementia Minds. Because when we start sharing, we're talking our own language. We're talking our dementia language. We talk about how we feel, how we're tired in the middle of the day. Oh, I have to take a nap at the same time. Or this happens. Oh, that happens to me all the time. Or an example, as the ladies are sharing, it's triggering things that are very similar to me. So again, we talk a dementia language, and that's the nice thing about the Dementia Minds. Everybody there is talking the language of dementia. We all can understand and relate. And it's funny because look at right now, the two ladies, as I'm speaking, they're nodding their head. You get on our calls and somebody's talking, everybody on the video calls that's in our Dementia Minds group, as somebody's sharing, they're doing this. And some of them are laughing because they can totally agree with it. So like I said, dementia is a language. And again, the Dementia Mind speaks that dementia language. The other thing about the anger, I'm similar to Chrisanne. I try and count my blessings, not my challenges. I ended up having to leave my job early because of my condition. I could no longer work. I know it was tough walking away from my job, but at the same time, I ended up retiring 5 years earlier than what was planned. I got to go to my son's wrestling matches that I didn't get to see. I got to see my daughter's water polo matches. I got to see my other daughters cheering at games and things that I didn't do because I was traveling so much with my job. So somebody says, well, when you had to leave work, how was it? I go, I got more connected with my family. I got 5 years more with my kids and to be involved in their activities that I didn't get to because of having a busy career. So again, I try and count my blessings, not my challenges.
Chrisanne?
I think being a part of a support group, especially Dementia Minds, it validates our feelings or losses, whatever, or struggles. And all of a sudden you go, oh, other people are feeling this way. So it's very validating, reassuring, and I appreciate that in learning from each other. I mean, every time I'm around, I have a notebook. And as we're speaking, I'm taking notes. And Stephen, you had mentioned the bidets before. I'm like, I'm going to get a bidet. That's on the list, but even with the emotional changes that we have, I kind of wanted to go back to the anger and what have you. And I hope we didn't take the wrong turn, because we do have emotional changes, personality changes at times, that anger and what have you. So correct me if I'm wrong, but again, meet them where they are. If they're angry about something, or if we are angry about something, go, oh, I understand, I get it. That is unfortunate. And then distract. Arguing with just won't make it. And I just wanted to make sure we had addressed that.
Perfect. I'm seeing some questions in the chat, so I'm trying to multitask. So I do have someone who's asking, can you discuss a particularly challenging situation and how your care partner worked together to overcome it? So do you have a situation that your care partner, somebody else has asked about the difference between caregiver and care partner. And so this question points to that, right? It's figuring it out together, right? Can you think of a situation that your care partner, Donna?
Like Stephen said, I don't do good with noises and crowds, and I don't think I really realized it until we went to, Craig and I were traveling, and we had stopped in a store, and it was a small store and it was crowded, and he was looking around and I was getting a little anxious. And then, a few minutes later, he came over and he's like, hey babe, you're standing in the corner, by yourself. And it was like, oh, and he was like, you have to tell me these things so I can help you get out of this situation. But I think there's sometimes we don't realize. And I think the care partner just recognizing, like, why in the world is she standing in the corner over there? Something must be triggering her anxiety levels to be up. I don't know if that's probably not the best situation, but that's one that comes to mind. Just the fact that he was looking around and was like, this is not normal behavior for her. And how do I help her figure out what's wrong and then get out of the situation?
Right. So it didn't come over and boss you around, but you.
No, it was just like, hey, this, because I'm have always typically been the more outgoing one. And so for me to be pulling myself away from situations, I think has been very odd for him to kind of see that shift in personality.
Okay, perfect. Chris Ann. And I know Stephen's got something because I saw him writing. So
We all take notes so we remember what we were going to say. But my situation is really great, but I did have to change where I lived. Love my husband. He's a good man. But I changed, he didn't. And it's just really hard. He's on a learning curve. So I ended up moving over closer to my daughter in Michigan. I used to go back to see, Naperville to Illinois. So I feel like I have two homes, but it was twofold. I knew it was really difficult for him. He's learning to read the room. And I think we have to understand that the people who love us are on a learning curve. They're about this. And then the other part of it was that I wanted to spend more time with my grandkids. They're young and I just enjoy them so much. So I moved. But it's back to that anger. Am I mad at my husband? No, he's doing the very best he can. He's trying and he's learning. And I know he'll be there when I really, really need him. So
great. Stephen, anything before I go to the next question?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. What are some of the activities that calm you when you're starting to get agitated? Well, so this is kind of interesting. So yeah, let's talk about that and then we'll explore a few things. So what do you do to make yourself calm or help yourself calm down? Stephen, I saw your hand pop up.
Well, one thing is I get more calm when I go to the gym. So if I get frustrated, go doing something physical to kind of work it out. If I'm in a situation where I can't work something, go do something, a walk or whatever, I'll open up my phone and I'll start looking at pictures. And Tracy understands why I do that. Pictures are my trigger to my memory. My phone is like my second brain. I had to get a new phone, which is kind of hard for me because I have to learn some new buttons, but I went from 126 to 514 or whatever. So it's like 4 times the memory size because I didn't want to delete videos or pictures or things from trips or places that we've been because if I took a picture of something, I had a good feeling. And then when I look at my pictures, it reminds me of those places, those trips, those experiences, my friends that I haven't seen in a while, or activities or things that I've done. So sometimes when I'm having an off moment or whatever, and I can't go do something physical, I'll start looking at photos because it's a trigger to my memory. I'll use a quick example. We went on a cruise with Tracy's family and I was stopping everybody to take photos. Okay, the guys, all the cousins, the boy cousins, the girl cousins, the husbands and wife, now the sisters, now the brother-in-laws, and we'll get the parents in the photos and everything. And then one of Tracy's sisters pulled her aside and said, "Is your husband going to take another damn picture on the way to dinner?" And she said, "Listen, when the cruise is over and you get home, your kids and your husbands are going to remember this cruise. My husband isn't, so get in a photo, shut up and smile." And then the funny thing is that when the cruise was all over and done with, my brother-in-law was a professional photographer. He went to school and everything, but he took landscapings and pictures of bears in Alaska and the ice falling off the chipping or whatever it's called and stuff. I had all the people in the background. Then my in-law says, "You know what? Jim gave us some beautiful scenery pictures, but there's no people in any of them. Can we get a copy of all your photos?" It was amazing. Everybody wanted a copy of my photos when it was all said and done, but during the moment they didn't, they thought it was like something. But again, that's my trigger. And again, if somebody you're dealing with is agitated and they do have a cell phone or if you have a photo album next to them, pull out some pictures and start going over pictures with them, because if it's pictures, it's typically a happy moment or a memorable moment is why you wanted to capture it on film. So again, sitting down and going over those things, because just the feeling that person, they may not remember that that picture was taken in Ireland or whatever, but they'll start remember the feeling of that photo. And then it's fun if you tell, remember when we were in Ireland and things like that. Like when Tracy starts talking about trips, I have to pause her sometimes and get to my phone and start looking for photos or things. And in our hallway, we have photos all over the walls of all of our trips that we've gone, because they're happy triggers for me. So again, photos are a trigger for me. For some people, it's music. If somebody's agitated or grouchy or having a bad mood, we actually have a Steven mixtape that during the day, if I have a problem, it's saying play Steven's music, and it plays in the background. We also have on Alexa, and then I better not say it too loud, the thing will turn on. And then we have one in our bedroom called Echo, because it has to have a different name, so it won't turn on the other one. We turn on this one, we say play Steven's sleep playlist. So I have a playlist that I listen to that helps me get to sleep at night at the same time. So for a lot of us, music and pictures tend to be a trigger for memories.
Anybody else about how you calm, keep calm? Okay, Chrisanne.
Well, I know Joanna Fix is on the here today, and I stole from her the earmuffs.
Yeah.
Because that way it muffles the sound, but I can still be present in the activity or something. I've also learned I wear sunglasses sometimes, around to help, and that's been really good for me as well. And then I started with meditation apps because I thought it was really helpful for me. And now I don't need them any longer. I can do that myself, but it's essentially deep breathing. And then I've added some mantras and have learned some relaxation apps that I use, and even pain app. When I have a severe muscle spasms, my daughter introduced me to a pain app, and it was really, really beneficial. So I think breathing, sunshine, get outdoors is really important to get enough sunshine. I sing too a lot and dance around the house.
I do that when nobody's home.
Do it anytime I want, which absolutely bugs my grandchildren a lot, which I thoroughly intend on doing.
Oh yeah, and you enjoy doing it. Donna, do you have anything to add on the subject? Are you good?
No, I was just going to say, but Stephen brought it up. Mine is jazz specifically. I love all kinds of music, but there's something about jazz. It's so chill. And like, I still cook. It's going to take me like twice as long, but and I don't want help, I'll figure it out for myself, even if I have to dump it and start over. But, Craig can sense that. And so sometimes I'll be getting frustrated and not really realize how frustrated I am. And I'll hear that jazz kick on in the background. So I think that's his way of saying, chill out a little bit without just coming out, because I would go ballistic.
I love it.
But that's kind of his way. But that and also fresh air just does so much good.
Yeah, I love it. I want to be in the kitchen and I want to do the cooking. Thank you very much. Right?
Yes.
Exactly. Stephen.
And then to piggyback on what Chrisanne about earmuffs, my wife carries earplugs in her purse just for the what if, or just in case, because we've gotten into situations where I was struggling and the noise and the sounds, or high pitched sounds, or low ceilings or whatnot. So she's kind enough. She actually carries some earplugs in her purse for in case that situation happens. And again, same thing with the sunglasses. If you look at my photos, I would probably say 85% of my pictures, I've got my sunglasses on, because it helps cut down that light sensitivity, the movement and things like that. And a lot of times if I get in situations like that, I just close my eyes, and I don't want to people looking at like, man, he's just sitting there with his eyes closed. So with the dark sunglasses, you can't tell if I have my eyes open or closed. And again, I learned that from a speech therapist that I went to, that when I used to speak at speaking engagements or even on this call, you'll notice I close my eyes a lot, because when I close my eyes a lot, it closes one of your major senses, and then it allows me to help find my words a little bit easier. So that's another thing. So if you're speaking with somebody and they're getting frustrated about telling a story or remembering something, tell them, hey, Susie, close your eyes for a moment and think about Ireland or wherever thing, and I'm sure that story is going to come to you. And then just keep soothing with them, and then just be quiet for a moment. But again, a lot of the times I close my eyes and I'm able to find that word easy. I can find that memory easier because I'm cutting off something that's distracting me. My eyes or something's moving around.
Right, because you talk about the multitasking and we forget that hearing and seeing is multitasking, right? So if you can close your eyes and you think, hey, Christine, I have a question. There's some questions in the chat box about like people who either refuse, you know, so do you know about, I think it's anosmia. Do you know that? Okay, about the persons who don't recognize the inability to recognize. I don't know, I might have had the term totally wrong, but I was, go ahead. I was wondering about the person who might not recognize that they have dementia.
Yes. Well, I think it's hard to recognize within ourselves that we have dementia. Yeah. I think about oftentimes there's cultures, and that having a dementia, it really comes with a negative connotation. It's a negative stigma. So admitting that you may have an issue is really, really difficult. And when you think about dementia, so for example, if it's Alzheimer's or of the type, they may not know that they're doing it. They may not remember that they did it incorrectly. And that's really a time that, you know, in my mind, you have a responsibility perhaps to get a hold of the physician or family members or whatever, and move it forward and see what you can, what kind of help you can get for them. And the reason I bring that up is because there is help. There are medications that can really help with memory. With Lewy body, I went on Aricept immediately, or once I was diagnosed, and I'm on the right dose of Aricept. I couldn't speak. I could not be having this conversation with you, and that's what I spoke for a living. And I turned like this on a dime, and I also started being able to remember. Getting help with good sleep at night is critically important. If you don't sleep, then you can't remember, and your mood is more difficult. So I can appreciate that difficult situation. It's really
What about one person has put in here who's in a residential care setting, and it's like a memory, it sounds like it might be like a memory unit. And the one lady says, you know, these people around me are not like me, you know, okay, she doesn't feel like needs to be there. What do you think? Do you tell her she does, or do you join her how do you handle that?
I would join her reality. I would, for that moment, because if she is there, supposed to be there, if she does have short-term memory loss or cognitive changes, she's not going to remember it in 10 minutes. Distract. Join her where she is and distract would be my recommendation. Like Stephen was saying earlier, that's a great time to start pulling out any family photos that they have available, you know, knowing what activities that they enjoy, you know, those types of things. But to sit and argue with the person will do no.
Maybe they should put them to work, right? Like, you're right. Let's help these folks, or, you know, do something, and, you know.
Suggestion. That really is giving coloring. You know, my uncle used to roll logs in the in the long-term care, and that was great. So, yeah, but I still think join the reality.
Okay, our time is getting short. We have about 7 minutes. I have a couple more questions I can ask, but I just want to ask the panelists if there's something about care partners that you want to share that we haven't covered, just to make sure we're doing okay. Okay,
I think I do.
Okay.
And I don't know if we shared it or not. This goes back to my memory. But one of my kind of don'ts for do's and don'ts would be don't dismiss the things that are happening to me just because you can't see it or can't understand it. And I know it was brought up in the video, like where people, I think, because they don't know what to do, especially if you're not in those later stages, we look fine and we communicate fine. But there's like I said before, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that is hard to understand unless you're living it. And so people's natural tendency, I think, is to try to make us feel better by saying, oh, that happens to me all the time, or oh, and that is so frustrating because it's almost like a dismissal of, because we know, like we pursued a diagnosis because we know this is not right. Something is really wrong. And so it's so frustrating for people. And you kind of know in the back of their mind that they're trying to, like, make everything sunshine and rainbows, but in our world it's not. And we've learned how to navigate that. And it's almost it's probably one of the most frustrating things other than being corrected, because I hate that too. Like just go with it, but yeah,
So
I would
not
say,
minimizing, not so
yeah,
don't say I do that all the time too. Or
yeah,
I get
I don't need you to make a big deal of it, but I don't need you to just kind of, I just need you to be normal, be normal about it in a manner of speaking.
Right.
Don't overreact and don't underreact, just kind of
Right.
let me be
A
frustrated.
lot of people ask, what do I say then? So if you say, it's so frustrating, I forget everything, or I make, my husband will say, I'll make a million trips back and forth to the bedroom to get everything I need. Is there, I don't say, well, I do that too. What is there an appropriate response? Chrisanne?
I think identifying the emotion is really important at that point, just to say that must be so frustrating. And you can offer at that point, is there anything I could do to help you with that? Would making a list, can I help you make a list? See how that conversation goes. But at that, identifying the emotion, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what Donna was just saying, when we make mistakes, maybe just go close the cabinet door without saying anything. And I think that's important too. Go ahead, Stephen.
As a caregiver, it's important. I use this phrase, I didn't put my life on hold. I hit the fast forward button. The best time to do something is now. So you're dealing with your loved one who's dealing with this. If they're talking about, someday I want to go there, well, you know what? That someday can be tomorrow. So don't keep putting those things off, because I have another phrase. I want to die with memories, not dreams. Because if I say that I want to die with memories, that means I've done that. So a great thing you can do is, as the caregiver for your spouse or something, if you have your wife or your husband keep saying, I would love to go horsebacking someday, plan horseback riding this coming weekend. Why do you have to wait till next summer, next year, 2 years from now? I mean, if they can't physically do that, then no. But again, it's important that quality of life is still very important to us. So again, and we want to do things. So like I said, the best time to do something is now. One day, Tracy's sister came back from Croatia on a trip, and we had talked about that we wanted to go, but we didn't go because of COVID or whatnot. And then when Tracy was talking about her sister's trip, it was Friday. I booked a trip that we left on Monday to go to Croatia. I mean, people wait 6 months or a year to do these things. It's like, no, honey, I want to go now. Oh, are you sure? She double checked everything. But like I said, is that we want to die with memories. Help us get those memories so we just don't die with dreams.
Absolutely. Chrisanne?
Just a couple more points, and that is for Stephen, I always say I'm going to create memories for them so when I'm gone, they have them. And I'm just going to enjoy the moments as we go. I think the role changes that are inevitable with our diagnosis is tough for both parties, or all parties that are involved. And my example of that is there's 7 of us kids. So my oldest sister, I used to be her right-hand person. when we had large family get-togethers and what have you. I can no longer be that right-hand person. And that's hard for me. I want to be that person, and I'm a nurse, so I was always the first one there when someone was ill, and I can't do that now. I can coach them from where I am,
Right.
but I can't be there. And the same way with my older sister. And that I know that's hard. That was hard for her, and now she's embraced that. But so there's adaptations for all people. This is, I can't think of a disease that, when we really think about it, it impacts the person, but it also impacts everybody who loves them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I hope that you all our panelists are also watching the chat, or I would like to point out the chat is like going zoom, 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 how great it is, how great it is. And I just, so wonderful job. But I don't know, but my favorite attendee wrote a while up on the stream of discussion. It was great to learn from the experts. And that's exactly right. The lived experience experts, the folks who are living with dementia. So thank you for sharing all this information and your experience with us. As always, you're phenomenal. Thank you for having us.
Brenda, thank you very much for helping us put this together. You do really exceptional work. And on behalf of the Validation Training Institute, and I'm sure that Vicky here will thumbs up. I think Kristen said that nothing about us without us. And obviously that speaks to the human journey, but especially where you are living. And on behalf of the audience, this idea of there is nothing without us, on our quote unquote, and really there is nothing without you. So thank you for allowing us to be part of it, because without that, there simply would be nothing. So thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Please stay around. The only thing that, if you don't mind, we ask is that you just remove your video and mute yourself, but please stay on. We would love you to continue being part of this journey.
Thank you so much.
Any other thoughts about this panel? Thank you, Brenda. Vicky, any final thoughts? Sorry.
I'm here.
I was asking if you had any final thoughts before we wrap up this first session.
No.
Speechless.
It was complete.
Speechless.
Well, Brenda, Donna, Kristen, Stephen, thank you so much for being part of this event. Again, we're proud of your work, and we're just happy for all of you to be with us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right, everyone. So we have now concluded the first session of our third annual Validation Training Institute. And I will share my screen to just go over a few announcements that relate to Activity Strong and Link Senior. And I will let part of the break to Vicky to give us updates regarding VTI, the Validation Training Institute. So just to give you a little bit of background, I would love to invite Rita, Michelle, Lara, and Karen up on the stage so we can get started. Thank you. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, Charles. Hi, Rita.
Hi, Michelle.
I'm unable to start the video, so there must be a reason for that.
Let me quickly check that. Meg,
Yeah,
do you think? Yeah.
I can do it. Hang on a second, Larry. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Welcome, Larry. Thank you
Hello.
for being with us.
Welcome.
All right. Rita, I'll take your cue to let me know when we're ready to start. We can get started. Okay, great.
If Larry and Michelle feel ready, then
Yep.
we're ready to go.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us. My name is Charles Vilmren, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Linked Senior. I just have a quick few announcements before introducing us to our panelists. And so, again, this is the second session, part of our Validation World Congress. Just a few housekeeping reminders. We can earn up to 3 NAB, NCAP, NCTRC, and or NCDPCU credits. To earn the credits, you need to attend the full session, so as few as 1, as many as 3. To get the CU credits, please fill in the survey that we will be sending to you by midnight, Friday 23rd, so we can process the certificate of attendance. Please note that due to the high number of attendees, we will send the certificates via email next week, so between the 26th of February and March 1st, by the end of the day. Each certificate will be emailed individually. And if you have any questions, please contact us on or after March 4th and send us your requests at webinars@linkedsenior.com. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. Both the chat and the Q&A of Zoom are enabled. Given the large number of discussions in the chat, make sure to select everyone so that everyone can see your valuable contribution. And if you have a question or a comment specific for our panelists, please use the Q&A. Very important reminder, we're obviously here to learn and obviously here to have fun. So that's my wish for all of us, is to have fun today. With that, I am excited and honored to be introducing Rita Altman, who's a senior advisor, memory care and program services with Sunrise Senior Living, who's going to lead a session about living well by transcending the tragedy narrative. Rita, take it away, and I will stop to share to then share your session, your slides.
Great. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Michelle. And welcome everyone here today for session 2, where I know you will learn a lot. We've got 2 amazing experts here, and one particularly in Larry. Just a brief introduction. I'm an RN. I am a validation master. I'm honored to be one of Charles' colleagues at the VTI board and work with Vicki and the group, and also work as a senior, as a memory care advisor at Sunrise Senior Living. They have 270 communities across US and Canada, and validation is a key pillar. Communicating with empathy, listening for the unmet need, meeting the person where they are is where it's all at. And thanks to Naomi File, so many people have been trained in that. So with no further ado, I just want to give you a little update on, or a little info on the session itself. We are here to explore the tragedy narrative and how it's been built into society over so many years. And prioritizing the person rather than the disease requires that we reject that tragedy narrative. And I think the last session really helped us to understand how important that is. So today our goals are to reach a more positive outlook regarding dementia and cognitive change, to help us to recognize that people living with cognitive change remain capable of making decisions that affect their lives. Also move from pity and frustration to understanding and empathy. And the third objective is to gain insight. And this is a key one, because I think this is one we all want you to walk away with. Insight into how society frames aging and dementia, which often denies the person living with dementia opportunities for autonomy and growth. And that's a threat to well-being. As I said, I'm very much honored to be here with Larry and Michelle. Larry Gardner, Michelle Memren. And I will begin by just asking Larry to do a self-introduction. Tell us about your background, Larry, your diagnosis, and what has transpired since your diagnosis. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a father and a grandfather and a great grandfather and a partner. Those are the things that are important to me. My working life was spent partly in providing humanitarian assistance in the global south, so in several African countries and also in Eastern Europe. And then I had another career. I think I want to tell you about my personhood. I want to, because my personhood is what will persist. The things that I did in the past are in the past. And the moving line of time for all of us moves across our lives, and the things that we've done move to the past. The future remains for all of us unknowable, unforeseeable. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen beyond next week or next month. The only power we have in our lives is in the present moment. That's where I live. Most of the past, most of my past is no longer accessible because I can't remember it. I am pretty clear about how I want my life to be in the future, but I don't know how much of it I've got left. I want to say something about how seniors are treated, and especially people experiencing cognitive change. So I think there's a kind of oppressiveness to what happens when people reach the end of their working lives, when people no longer make the same kind of economic contribution. What I experience and what I see and what I feel, so I want to talk about my feelings. What I experience is that there's a tendency to discard us, to, looking for a word, this happens to me quite a lot, to marginalize us. And when we internalize it, what we feel is abandoned, betrayed, not taken seriously. These are very uncomfortable feelings. They're painful feelings. Personal tragedy, human tragedy, affects every living soul on this planet at some point in their lives. I think that there are possibilities for recovery. I don't think that it's possible to recover from cognitive change at the present time. And I don't think that many of the treatment options are workable. But I think there's something we can do with the power of our decision for as long as we've got it. For as long as I'm able to, I'm in charge of my mind. I can't do anything about the things that have happened to me and the things that are happening to me now, except change the way I feel about it. Some of us are going to need help to do that. And I've had a lot of help. Because of this oppressive kind of way that older human beings are treated in some of our societies, probably in the majority of our societies. I live in Europe. My experience of life is a bit different to the experience of people who live in North American countries. I've only got a little bit of time with everybody today. It looks like there are 633 participants logged in. That's a lot of people. I wish I could shake you all by the hand. I wish I could connect with each of you heart to heart. I enjoyed the first session. I enjoyed walking in the shoes with the people who were in the first session, listening to their life stories, listening to their coping strategies, listening to the triumphs that they've managed to achieve. And I consider that to be a great honor that I could spend that little bit of time with those people who were on the previous panel. It's time to ask me another question, Rita.
Perfect. I love what you just said about the power of decision and still being able to make those decisions. So important for all of us to hear that and keep our ears open. Larry, you have such a wealth of wisdom to share with us about your lived experience. What advice can you give us to help us, the participants, to remove the stigma attached to dementia so that we may transcend this tragedy narrative?
Well, I don't give advice very often. I think advice given to me I can share with you, which is do unto others as you would have done unto you. So if you wouldn't like to be treated as less than, if you wouldn't like to be treated as the other, then don't do it to anybody else, is how I would sum it up. Well, it's very good to be alive. And it's very special. It's an enormous privilege to be alive. There's a sort of spiral of cosmic dust, which we call the Milky Way. And on one of its limbs, there's a bright star surrounded by a cluster of planets. And one of them is a deep blue with swirling clouds. It's a very beautiful planet seen from space. And I don't know about other planets because I've only experienced this one. But the surface of this planet is fizzing with life, and life likes to persist, and life likes to persevere. And at the end of a living being's life, there's a kind of struggle to stay living. We want to live. I want to live. I want to have a life worth living, not a long, slow, undignified goodbye. And so the decisions I make for myself are to change the world with my love, where I can, with the people around me, starting where I am right now, starting in this place, and starting with 635 people who are participating in this conference. I've decided to do everything possible to make good things happen. And I've decided to do absolutely everything necessary to stop bad things from happening. And tagged on to the end of those decisions are what I call, and this means, and this means, and this means living with my fellow humans in the most compassionate way that I can. It means taking every connection that I have personally and seriously, because life is a privilege and every living soul deserves to be honored for the fact that they are alive. We are all different. The cognitive changes I experience are personal. They only apply to me. When you've met somebody with dementia, you've only met one person with dementia, because every single one of us is individual. It affects us individually. It affects us personally. It affects us deeply. I got my diagnosis when I had 3 school-aged children at home. I had a mortgage the size of the British national debt, absolutely immense amount of money borrowed to build a home for my family. I had a job. I had colleagues. I had customers, people who depended on me to do my job well. And it came to a sort of unseemly collapse when my brain was unable to do things the way it had previously been able to do them. And my colleagues and my customers were the first to notice. I didn't notice it myself. I noticed that my children got kind of cranky with me quite a lot. And it wasn't until afterwards, until reflecting and looking back, that I realized what they were reacting to is that Pops was doing things a bit differently. And he wasn't the same Pops that we used to have. And we missed the Pops that we used to have. And who's this strange guy who's living in our house who acts very forgetful? And it seems like he's not taking his responsibilities as seriously as before. Cognitive change affects everybody around the person who has cognitive change. It affected the whole of my family, and still does. It's kind of like when you chuck a rock in the middle of the pond and the ripples keep going to the edges. Well, they kind of don't stop. Another question, Rita.
Yeah, the ripples, your family, everyone around you, your acknowledgement of where you are in the moment, and theirs of being there with you in those moments. Also very, very, very important. Larry, science tells us that creativity seems to be relatively well preserved. We've seen this in older age, and also in people living with dementia. Many of us know from experience that people living with dementia can still live well, like you do. In fact, they can still engage in amazing creative endeavors. Michelle will share some of that with us. We would love for you to share, or I would like you, if you would be willing to share with us some of your creative endeavors. I know when we chatted before, you talked about, for example, the walking school bus, or your work with a poet, or the Dementia Rock Opera. Any or all, we would love to hear about. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't really remember that conversation very well, Rita, so thanks for the prompts. The walking school bus was great fun. I lived in a neighborhood, and everybody used their car to take their kids to school. Something happened that made that not possible. And so I organized people who lived in senior living to join with me and to create a walking school bus. So we walked around the neighborhood and we picked up the children from their homes and took them to their schools in the morning. All of those children suddenly acquired several honorary grandfathers, grandmothers, aunts and uncles, and all of the older people, including me and especially me, got to have loads of fun with the young people, with the children on their way to school. And then in the afternoon, we turned up at the school gate and we waited for the children to come to us. And we ran the walking school bus around the neighborhood and took everybody back home again. It was magical. Everybody, all of the seniors got to get a walk twice a day. Suddenly their muscle tone started to improve and the bone density started to improve, and the slips and falls that put folk in hospital, the hip fractures started to decrease. The health authorities started to hear from their family doctors that there weren't so many people turning up at the office with the kind of aches and pains and minor problems that occupy most family doctors during their working hours. Everybody got healthier.
What beautiful outcomes, and such a natural, beautiful, intergenerational kind of activity that truly you've given, I think, a lot of people a lot of inspiration for ways to reach out and connect. Super meaningful, super meaningful. Can you share a little with us about the poet that you worked with?
The kind of poetry that we did was what I call found poetry, which is to take a line from somewhere that suddenly acquires some kind of significance and then ask people to say what the next line would be. And so it's a kind of community poetry. During the pandemic, we did this on Zoom. Suddenly, particular kinds of words started to have emotional effects because we got lonely, we got lonesome, we got frightened. We got frightened because so many folks were dying or getting really seriously ill and were in intensive care. And these worries, these anxieties, well, you can turn most of them on their head, is what we discovered doing this kind of poetry. And so one of the characteristics in the pandemic of emotion was that thoughts were fleeting. Thoughts were being powerful visitors between our ears and behind our eyes. And some of them needed to come out of our mouths. And what we tried to do with this found poetry was to just encourage people to open up their heads, let all this stuff out. And we crafted some really lovely poems. Enjoyed that very much.
Beautiful, creative, engaging, heartfelt connections that I know broke a lot of the loneliness or the feeling of isolation that so many felt, and in such a creative way. Wish I had thought of that. Just one more question, and that is about the Dementia Rock concert. Again, another way to experience music, connection, and as soon as you're finished, Charles, if you could pull up the video, there are a couple of, the PowerPoint, there are a couple of pictures there of Larry, and then after that, we'll move on to Michelle's. But Larry, can you share with us a little about the Dementia Rock concert?
Yes. There's an organization in England called Turtle Song, and it partnered with the English National Touring Opera. We recruited music students from the University of Oxford and London Music School. And we also had somebody to help with music arrangement and with choreography. And we created every year during a period of 10 weeks, meeting weekly. We used this found poetry method to create lyrics around themes. And one of the themes was, if you remember Woodstock, you weren't there. It kind of is, it's a line in the lyrics. It's a line that kind of says, Woodstock was special for a whole generation, not just for the people who could walk down the muddy track to the farm and experiment with substances to open your mind. It was also a liberation. It was also a statement. It was a reaction to the Vietnam War. It was a reaction to a period in history, not just in North America, but all around the world. Young people wanted to imagine a better world than the one that they'd grown up with during the post-Second World War period. And they didn't want to experience what their parents had experienced. They wanted to shake it off. And so the rock opera, so the music students sat down with a whole group of people from a dementia organization, and we'd used this found poetry method to write and craft the lyrics. And we had a music arranger called John Petter who set the songs we crafted to music, and then wrote the scores for each instrument for the music students to play. It's the English National Touring Opera does this in every city together with Turtle Song, every big city in the UK. And there's a website with all of the music videos there.
Woo. Thank you, Larry, for sharing your brilliance, sharing your sentiments. There have been so many messages in the chat. One that stood out, they all do, but the world would be a better place if we were all like Larry. That's the truth. I've learned that from just a little bit of time with you planning this. Again, heartfelt thanks. Please stay on. Would like to now ask you, Charles, to pull up the PowerPoint, maybe show the first couple of slides of Larry, and then move on to Michelle, who is a filmmaker and journalist who has an amazing perspective regarding the tragedy narrative. And Michelle, I'll just ask you then to do a self-intro and move on to address some of the things that we talked about with Larry, creativity, etc. And I think your PowerPoint will guide that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rita. Thank you, Larry. Rita, if you don't mind me letting me know which slides you'd like me to go through.
All right, if you just want to do the first three,
yeah,
and that's Larry. The future is in your hands. The next one. Michelle, would you like to address this one? And then Michelle will cue you on the rest.
Thank you so much.
Sure. So hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. And thank you, Larry. Thank you, Rita. So when Larry and I first were introduced and we were going to present on this panel, I messaged him on LinkedIn, and I just sent him a hello, and he wrote back, and we started corresponding. And he sent me this poem. So, he talked a little bit about the found object poetry, but I just love this poem so much. And I wrote back to him, the present moment offers a future we create. Feelings that are fleeting are already out of date. And I said, I'm putting that on my wall, and I have. And so when I was creating the PowerPoint, I thought, what a perfect way to showcase his poetry and his creative practice. So that's that poem there. And then the next slide, Charles, now this is also another quote from Larry. Larry, I hope you don't mind that I pilfered our LinkedIn exchange to with your quotes. So we as artists communicating back and forth, he said, art is where I find my feelings. And I just love that, because it's where I find my feelings too. So that's where that quote comes from. And then this picture on the right is something that I believe was from the Dementia Diaries page, where people living with dementia have, blogs and share photos and daily diaries and things. And so I just loved this picture too. And so the next slide is of the rock opera from that Larry just spoke to. And here he is. And I hope you still have that shirt, Larry. It's pretty amazing.
It was donated. So the people I was working with were roughly around about my age, in our 70s, early 70s, late 60s. And we really had a ball going back to being teenagers.
Well, it looks good on you. So that's the Larry section. And I just want to say what a gift this is. So I'm as Rita mentioned, I'm a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker who works creatively, engages in creative collaboration with people living with various types of dementia and neurocognitive changes. So a little bit about, if you want to go to the next slide, Charles, we can. So this is me. And here on this slide is I'm gonna talk a little bit about the playwright who I worked with, Maria Irene Fornes. That's a much younger me at 24, with Irene on with a camera. And then to the left here, a more recent photo of me at the Mayo Clinic with John Richard Pagan, who's an advocate, a dispersed monastic, extraordinary human who we've been collaborating. And then down below, and he's living with Lewy body dementia. And then down below is me sitting in Minnesota with my good friend and collaborator, Sarah Langer, who is a retired neurologist living with Lewy body dementia. And so we're all working on different types of collaborations. So that's that slide there. And the next, I'm just going to take you through. So the next, so here's a little intro into the film that I made with Irene. And then I'm going to show you a little short trailer of that film. That was a documentary film that took me 15 years to make. And it was with a mentor and my favorite playwright. So you'll learn a little bit about that here. And then I'm going to share about a 2-minute clip with you. So thank you.
So Michelle, should I play the video now?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Charles.
Yeah, sure.
The takeaway is not a film about dementia. The takeaway is, how do you live a creative life, no matter what? My name is Michelle Memron, and I am a documentary filmmaker who works creatively with people who have dementia. I spent a decade working with the playwright Maria Irene Fornes, who is a visionary Cuban-American playwright, teacher, and director who was losing her memories, but not her creativity, to dementia. And her moment-to-moment approach to creating and living, by the time I met her when she had dementia, made me see the world in a completely different way.
The moment is a bit confusing, but on the other hand, I feel I am in good loving hands, 4 hands, 2 loving hands to the right and 2 loving hands to the left, and a kind of interesting painting behind.
The takeaway is not a film about dementia. The takeaway. So it's we can go to the next slide. So this is a trailer for the film. I don't know if there's a way to, someone just asked if we can increase the volume on the,
Am I the subject? Am I the subject of your film?
Yes.
Am I so fascinating that you feel I don't need script, I don't need rehearsal? I'm myself. I will be so interesting. People say, who is that?
Irene, as she prefers to be called,
was born in Cuba, wrote over 40 plays, won 9 Obies.
Nominated for a Pulitzer Prize.
No one ever knows who she is.
She's the one who's been out there cutting the brush, paving the trails.
Every play is different. Each play is demonstrating a different muscle.
I have so much style that you don't even know, you think it's mistakes. Try not to think too much about what makes good writing, but just to let it come out.
There's nobody who's had the influence in American playwriting as a teacher.
I often think of it as the experience of Alice when she goes through the hall. The neighborhood of artists.
You're the real deal.
Everybody always fell in love with her. I always called her Doña Juana.
To me, writing plays is not a way of earning a living, but it is a way of earning a life. Being an artist, you have to abandon any notion of things making sense. Does loss of memory imply that I don't remember anything or that there is a loss?
The whole purpose of her classes was to teach them not to get stuck.
I haven't been writing for how long? For years and years.
Irene, it's Michelle.
Follow me, kid. Writing, Michelle calls talking to a camera writing.
Is this part of your story?
I don't hide anything. I am what I am. I am a playwright. It's my life. It's my work.
You changed a lot of people's lives.
Oh, yes?
You changed my life.
Does this movie go into the future, or is it only the past? These are memories like dreams. It's true.
Charles, could you pull up can you stop this slideshow for 1 second? Thank you. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the tragedy narrative and to bring that back. So when I met that playwright who you just saw the clip on, I had no idea that she had Alzheimer's, which she later was diagnosed with. We just connected in a very real artistic way. And I wanted to spend more and more time with her. And we had we first met, we had a 6-hour lunch, and she had stopped writing, and we discovered that a camera could continue the creative process. And that's what we ended up doing. So I would show up, every other day with a camera. And what was amazing to me, and Larry talks about this, and we've been talking about it too, is the present moment. So I was, 23 or 24. I was an extraordinarily anxious human being. I still am. And Irene going to her apartment in the West Village every other day at that point in my life put me in the present moment so completely that it was almost like, I always say it's like taking a Xanax being with Irene, but it was really like I just moved into myself in a way that I never had before. And so the work, and what was very shocking to me was not what was happening with Irene, but the way that everyone was responding to Irene. Here is a woman who was founded the off Broadway movement in New York City, who had thousands of students, who was beloved and totally alone in her apartment. And nobody knew how to interact with her. And she's a genius. And we're all geniuses, right? But I think that was so shocking to me. And I didn't know that I was going to go on doing this kind of work, but I think the tragedy narrative, what I wanted to do with that film was to show that who we are doesn't go away. that what we do, I mean, we talk about people being gone. We see these illustrations of, the tree with the leaves falling, or the blurred vision, the blurred face or no face in illustrations. And so for me, it became a real human rights and disability rights issue. And how do we, and so, and it just so happened that I've continued to find mentors and teachers who are living with this. But I think that's where Larry and I really connected, was like, it's time for a change. And along the way, in doing this work, I had the good fortune to meet Brenda Roberts and Mark Roberts. And she actually reached out to, or I don't know how we met. So I think someone introduced us, and she ended up, we collaborated on a screening of that film. And she was doing something that I mean, I always say it's revolutionary, but it shouldn't be, right? Like actually having people living with dementia telling their own stories and trying to change policy. I mean, that should have happened 50 years ago, but it's happening now. And with National Council of Dementia Minds, we've been able to collaborate on some video material. So I wanted to share that with you all. And so I'm gonna share, so we've been making these videos together. It was our dream. Brenda and I had this dream that we were gonna do a series of videos, but we didn't have any money at the time. And then, and now we're getting to make some of these videos. I have a wonderful editor who we've been working with, Jackie Wiedewer. And so I'm gonna show, so Charles, if we could just show some of I'm gonna show a couple screenshots, and then we're gonna show a video that's, we did a Living Well with Dementia video. We're just gonna show a minute of it. But this is Terry Montgomery, who's a member of the National Council of Dementia Minds, incredible advocate and activist. And she was 56 or 58 when she received her Alzheimer's diagnosis. And then we can go to the next slide. And so this is Mark Roberts, husband of Brenda Roberts, and founder, one of the founders of National Council of Dementia Minds. And this was an article that was in the Wall Street Journal. And it's incredible too that it's taken so long to get major media to cover stories about people living with dementia and to actually have them be the focus of the stories. So it's a beautiful thing. And we're gonna share, the next thing is the clip. So here we go.
When people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," please don't be. I'm actually living my best life ever.
Dementia doesn't signal end of life, it signals change of life.
All the public really sees is people in the end stage, because there is still the stigma.
I was scared to death when I was first diagnosed. I'm not anymore.
I enjoy each and every day.
Don't look at it like, oh me, woe me.
It's just so important to know that there are beautiful things that we can all do.
I can still do a lot of things just as well as I used to. And some I can even do better.
I'm living well with dementia.
I am living well with Alzheimer's disease.
I'm living well with FTD.
With younger onset, mixed dementia.
With vascular dementia.
MCI.
I am living incredibly well with Lewy body.
Michelle, Great, great stuff to share. I have a question for you as a journalist and as someone who's really taken such interest in this. Why do you think the media, as well as many organizations, depict the tragedy narrative? What is it about it that so often we see all the challenges, all the downside, and none of what you're showing?
Well, I mean, I think, and I know, and I want to hear what Larry has to say. But I do think it's also that people get diagnosed so late. And I think that so all we're seeing is the end stage, because that's what people are having experience with. I mean, that's one of the reasons. There are many, many reasons. I mean, I think anytime that you, when people can't look at something and really engage it, I think that I think dementia in general presents an existential threat to human beings. And, you know, because we value like the mind, everyone is like, oh, what happens if something happens to your mind? And to really depict something the way it actually is, you really have to look at it. Any illness, I'm a cancer survivor, you know, like any illness, you really have to, or anything in life, to do it justice, you have to pay attention to it. So I do think that that's one of the reasons, but I think that what we're trying to do with National Council of Dementia Minds and a lot of different organizations is how to get people to get resources and get diagnosed earlier, so that that they can be advocates, that their quality of life is better, their relationships are better, their lives are better. So I think that's part of the reason. But Larry, I want to hear what you think.
I think it's got something to do with tear jerking. So when I think about having children, having babies, we all wanted the very best for our children and for our babies. And we made all kinds of sacrifices and worked all kinds of hours to try and create the best possible world for them to inhabit, to grow, to flourish, and to flower and blossom and bloom. And those resources that we made available while we were creating the world that we live in now are not available to the same extent to people as they age. Poor people age very poorly, and the resources are not available for them because a lot of them are not insured. And so the organizations that provide resources need to appeal. They need to appeal for donors. They need to appeal for contributions. They need to appeal for subsidies. And they produce tearjerkers. And I think that's why the portrayal is so harsh and so bleak and so drear. It's not really a representation of the reality for all of us. Undoubtedly, there are some people who at the end of life phase are not having a good time, and the representations of them is what stimulates people to put their hands in their pocketbook.
I also think I just wanted to add one more thing. I just saw a movie called American Fiction, and there's a representation of the mother who is moving through, I believe, Alzheimer's. And I was just reading an article about somebody, a young daughter, saying that movie was so portrayed her reality of being a care partner to her parent. And but I was watching it and I was thinking, this is crazy. This is just a shell of a person, and this is stigma. And it just exacerbates stigma, right? So so we're seeing stories from the perspective of care partners mostly, and not the experience of people living with dementia. So that's not to say, and those stories are really important because care partners, that's the care team, the care team. And there are also people, who are single, who are going through this too, not to diminish their experience. But I think that So often the media is telling the story from that perspective, and it's a very different perspective often. And Larry, you can speak to that more,
So it's very likely in the next 20 years that the number of people affected by cognitive change is going to double. And that means that probably everybody in this audience of 637 people are probably going to be touched by it, either by the experience of cognitive change themselves or caring for somebody who's got cognitive change. And an increasing number of people who have cognitive changes will be caring for loved ones with cognitive changes. And so I've looked after 2 family members in the end stage of their dementia, while I was actually affected by the symptoms of a vascular type of dementia. It's going to be a future that we have to inhabit, but it's also one that we can shape now. The power that we have in the present moment is the power to shape the future. Can't do anything about the past, but we can certainly do something about the future. And that really sort of, I think, leads to the point where we need to make a call to arms and mobilize people to well, first of all, face this. It's not very nice, and to transform the tragedy narrative into a force for change, to transform it so that people are mobilized to make a difference in their own lives, where they are, with the people around them, but also to try and extend our influence. And so one of the things that I've had some opportunities to do that. One of the slides that you showed was outside the European Parliament. The European Parliament in Brussels is kind of like the capital of the Federation of European Union countries, and where the representatives go to make decisions about how what happens in Europe. I've also been invited to meet policymakers, parliamentarians, senior civil servants, the people who run the ministries in government, to participate in the process of policy making. And I think that the mobilization that we need to see, the call to arms that we need to see, is use your democratic right to ensure that the people who represent you are representing also the needs that you have and the desire to have a future kind of society that is better, qualitatively better than the one we have now. At the end of the Second World War, when most countries were on their knees, certainly in Europe, but the United States had expended every resource and flexed every muscle possible to achieve the end of a war. And at that time, it was possible to create a kind of society that was better than the 1930s, where people had lived in such abject poverty and misery. We can do it again. If we could do it then at a time when we had no resources at all, now in 2024, we definitely have the resources to do it. They just need to be prioritized differently.
Eloquently stated. And it is your words, Larry, really are a call to arms to everyone here. It's incumbent upon all of us to listen, to heed that, to reach out, to let our voices be heard, but also to show that a person isn't just a shell, even in their most advanced stage or state, should a person move to the late stages. They are not a shell. There is a person inside. There are ways to connect with meaning. And the political scene needs to see some of that. They need to see that you can connect through touch. Naomi Feil taught us we can connect. Vicky showed us how to center first, how to use exquisite listening, how to observe that person, their breathing, their tone, their emotion, how to get on their emotional wavelength And when we do that and we connect with empathy, we connect with that person who is absolutely positively still inside. Sometimes harder to get to, no doubt, but it's incumbent upon every one of us to continue Naomi Files' legacy, to continue to connect with empathy, to recognize that all people are very unique and very, very valuable. What you have taught us, Larry, Michelle, what you have shown us through your incredible, beautiful work in filmmaking. The National Council of Dementia Minds, VTI, so many kindred spirits here. I truly believe, Larry, that if we all heed the call, we could create, or we can create, a society that can transcend that narrative. I'd love to open it up now after just saying thank you to you, Larry, and to Michelle. If there are a couple more folks, we have 5 more minutes. In case there are any questions directly from any of you, please put them in the chat and we will do our best to address them. Great comments. Any questions? Any thoughts? We're getting thanks for your presentations.
I'd like to say a thank you. I'd like to say a thank you to the 638 people who are logged in to honor the fact that they've done this. I want to honor each person who gave their time, paid attention, and engaged. It heartens me to know that you are out there. It gives me hope and it gives me joy to know that you want a better world for people living with cognitive change.
Michelle, any last words to share with the group before we close?
I ditto. I second Larry, and there's just so much that we can do, and together. So it has, it's about collaboration, and Larry and I are talking about collaborating. Who knows what's going to happen? But I just think that I just want to say thank you to everyone, and for all the work you're doing, and somebody had said that they wanted to see Larry's poem again. I wonder, Charles, can we bring that slide up just to end with, to show that poem one more time? It's a beautiful way to end too.
Good idea.
In the present moment.
Yep. It will keep us in the moment.
But actually,
and you are both so inspiring. Thank you. There's the poem.
Hey, Larry, can you read it in your own voice?
Sure thing. What happened in the past is not happening right now. Those things left behind us, we can't alter anyhow. The present moment offers a future we create, and feelings that are fleeting are already out of date. I have another poem. I have it here ready. If you'd like me to read it to you, I'd be happy.
Of course.
What a great way to end a great discussion.
This is a poem I wrote to the person I love and who shares my life. When the dark storms cloud over the mind, I will just try to be kind. When the fog clouds over the brain, well, then let me take the strain. When you can't see the rainbows in the sky, well, let me take you way up high. When the rain comes day after day after day, just let me take you away. When it's cold and bleak and very drear, let me hold you really near. When everything looks like it's a great big muddle, perhaps we should just have a cuddle. When the pain is sharp, stabbing, hot, let me love you until it's not.
Mm. Mm. Powerful. And Larry, there's an invite for you to have coffee with another person who lives in the Netherlands. So we'll have to save the chat so that
Okay.
you have more great connections.
Get somebody to give me those contact details. We gaan op de koffie samen.
Beautiful. We'll do that. Okay. Well, we have come to an end of an amazing panel discussion. Can't thank you enough, and thank, as Larry did, everyone, all of the participants who are out there. Hope, and I know, I don't just hope, I know that you're inspired, and the next step is all in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to welcome everyone. Excited for our third session of the third Validation World Congress. Welcome, Vicky, Nancy, Joanna, and Rita. I'm going to share my screen, go through a few announcements, and then let you lead this session today for us. My name is Charles de Villeneuve, and I am with a company called Linked Senior. We started this initiative called Activity Strong, and we're very excited to partner with the Validation Training Institute for the third Validation World Congress. Brief reminder for today's session, we can earn up to 3 NAB, NCAP, NCTRC, and or NCDB CE credits. To earn the credit, you need to attend 1 full session or as many as 3 full sessions. And you need to fill out the information in the survey. And please do that before the end of the day, midnight Eastern time on Friday, February 23rd. We'll process these certificate of attendance and then issue you them via email. Just as a note, due to the large number of attendees today, you will start receiving them starting Monday, next week, Monday, February 26th, and no later than Friday, March 1st, by the end of the day. Each certificate is going to be sent individually, and please feel free to contact us after Monday 4th, March 4th, if you have any questions via email at webinars@linksenior.com. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. On Zoom, we're using both the chat and the Q&A features. So on the chat, feel free to use the everyone drop down to make sure that everyone sees your contribution. And obviously, if you have questions specifically for our panelists, please direct them in the Q&A. And a very important reminder that was repeated today is we're here to learn and have fun. So this is our wish to all of you. So with that, I wanted to briefly introduce us all to our third session. What do care partners want, need, when interacting with people living with dementia? Nancy, Vicky, Rita, and Joanna, thank you so much for being with us today. I will let you lead that session, and I have our media material ready whenever you want them. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Charles. This is an improvised session. I'm going to start by introducing myself and then asking the other people to introduce themselves. We have 2 or 3 role play situations sketched out, but you know, it's a role play improvisation. I'll be playing the old lady, and Nancy will be validating or not. And Joanna and Rita are going to be giving feedback from their perspective. So let me go first to Joanna, if I may. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell about your perspective on this?
Sure. Thanks, Vicky. Happy to be here. I am Joanna Fix. I live in Colorado Springs, Colorado. When I was on for the first session, I saw someone else from Colorado, but it was going so fast I couldn't type back. I am living with Alzheimer's disease. I'm 55 and I was diagnosed at 48. And my husband is my care partner and my spouse. Okay, yes, husband and spouse, same thing, right? And I'm just really happy to be able to give the lived experience perspective. Thank you for having me.
Rita, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Rita Altman, and I'm a validation master. I'm a nurse. My entire life changed when I met my career path, and life changed when I met Naomi File back in the late 90s at Country Meadows, who then became the first AVO and then on to Sunrise, an AVO as well. Once you take the little bit of extra time and energy to learn the validation method, it will change your life too. But most importantly, it changes the lives of all of the people living with dementia that you communicate with. Happy to be here. And as Vicky said, it will flow.
And your perspective on the role plays.
Yeah, there will be role plays, and I will give some feedback as a person trained in validation. So looking forward to that.
Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Brown, and I am a validation teacher. I work with Vicki in the Validation Training Institute as Deputy Director for Communications. And I also work full-time as a dementia care specialist in a memory day center. I've done that for 18 years. And so what my role will be in this particular session is that I will validate, like Vicki said, or not, the old woman role play that she will do. And so we're looking forward to showing before and after. And I totally agree with Rita. When I first learned about validation and attended my first workshop that Vicki gave, that changed my life and my career path. And it transformed my work with my clients. It's an extraordinary communication method. So thanks for joining us.
Okay. So I am an 85-year-old woman. And I've been living in this place. I don't know how long, but you know what? I've got to go home right now. The kids are waiting for me, and I really need to get back there. Can you open the door for me? The doors are locked.
Right. Yeah, the doors are locked. I'm sorry, there are no kids waiting at home. This is where you live now.
No. You see, if the kids are, if nobody is there to pick them up, you know, it's going to be a disaster.
They're not at home. They are grown. They have their own families. This is where you live now.
No. Lena is just 7 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And they get out at lunchtime, and I really have to go see them.
But it's not going to happen. They'll visit later, but they're adults. They have their own work. They have their own life. I know you love music, and we're going to have a music activity really soon. So let me get you all situated so we can get to the music session, and, we'll worry about the kids later.
Okay.
It'll all be okay.
Okay, cut. So, feedback givers, who wants to respond first? Joanna, Rita?
How much time do we have?
As much as you want.
Oh dear. So this is just so relative because yes, I have 3 real world experiences of validation versus the opposite. I know that Nancy's not normally like that, so thank God I can love her. But her shaking her head saying the kids are gone, that translates, at least to my heart, that are they dead? Have they left me? Have they abandoned me? And you know, arguing, using negatives, trying to distract, that doesn't fix anything. It just holds me in a state of purgatory. And it basically cripples me emotionally and makes everything worse. So it's kind of hard to watch. But I know we're doing this for a good reason. So I'm glad, Nancy, you're not normally that way. Thank you.
Rita, what did you see in that role play?
Very much the same that Joanna saw. The reality that I know Nancy doesn't use, but used for this is really old school. However, many still use it. We may think we have moved on, but it is still used. It shouldn't be, but it is. And very often it can be used more by people who want to hold that person in their reality because they don't want to lose them. And those people are often their family members. So this is not an indictment on those family members. We all know they're trying to hold them. So if they say dad died or the kids are grown, I'm one of your kids. What are you talking about? You don't have to go home and feed me. I'm here. It is their best effort to stay connected, to keep their loved one there. So that's pretty much my feeling on the reality side. On the little bit of distraction or the well-meaning activities person or nurse or whomever, oh, we're going to have an activity soon, just hold on. Did you all see Vicky's face? Imagine yourself as a mother needing to get home to your children. Nothing is more important. You'll knock the wall out to get there, right? And to say, hold on and wait, or have a cup of tea, or, oh, I know you love chocolate. Let's have some chocolate. Those distractions or, ways of distracting don't really work. Now, for some people, and maybe for some people who are younger, or we even heard in another session, sometimes a little distraction can be helpful. But for an older person who's in this last stage of life called resolution, they need us to listen with empathy and hear them. So we're going to listen to that next.
Thanks, Rita. We're going to do exactly the same role play now, and Nancy's going to use validation, the validation method. Excuse me. I see it's getting really late, and my kids are coming home, and I got to get home, and the door is locked. Can you help me?
You look really worried. You looked really.
You have to be there when the kids are coming home.
Sure. And your concern is about being a good mother.
That's exactly right.
So
that's exactly right.
That's so important to you, of course. And the door's locked?
When the kids come home from school, a mom has got to be there. Somebody's got to be there. Otherwise, the kids get lost.
Exactly. What will happen if you don't get there in time? What will happen? What's the worst that would happen?
Well, it happened once.
Oh.
I was running late, and the traffic and And they were crying. They were crying so bitterly. And you know, I don't think I've ever forgiven myself for that.
No wonder you're so worried.
Yeah,
You're so worried.
that was horrible. That was horrible. I feel it right now.
Right. I can see the pain that still, just thinking about it makes you feel so bad.
Ugh, you know, that was 40 years ago.
But it's like it was yesterday.
It
Or
feels
today.
sometimes like yesterday. That's true.
Mm.
Thank you for listening. You are a sweetie.
My pleasure. I'm here for you. I'm here for you.
Okay. I need lots of tissues tonight. Oh dear, oh dear. So, what did you guys think?
I thought Nancy rose to the emotional level. She affirmed where you were, not finding my words. She affirmed, she supported you, she was on your side.
Yeah.
And she asked questions while she waited for you to get to that place where you realized it was 40 years ago, which not everybody gets there, but she was patient and she was kind, and that made all the difference.
Totally made the difference.
Rita, what's your take?
Yeah. First of all, in this scenario, we saw that Nancy quickly observed you, got on your wavelength, met you where you were, didn't try to change the story or use reality. She told you you were right to feel the way you felt. She spoke to you almost like a best friend would. This is hard, right? She asked what would happen if. What would happen if? What's the worst thing that would happen? So she didn't just ask you questions that were closed. You look sad. You are upset. No, she said, what would, use what? So we talk about using who, what, where, when, how. She used what. That opened it up. You spoke more. She then asked the extreme, which is another technique with invalidation. What's the worst thing that would happen? And that helped you go there. Go to a place where the worst thing did happen for you. Again, let's think about this. You're an older woman living with dementia, resolving a lot of stuff. A lot of things that Naomi taught us, you know, we put in the backpack of life turns into a big foot locker and bubbles up to the surface. That day, you were missing those kids. It bubbled up somewhere deep inside your subconscious. You were thinking of them in that situation. Nancy helped you to go there. Well, it happened once, you said. It happened once. And there it went. You were able to put it out there and express it. Nancy acknowledged your pain. I think you felt validated, feeling that pain acknowledged. Sometimes when that happens, and it's not intended to bring the person back to reality, it did in this case. You vented, you shared your feelings, and then you kind of, that was yesterday. There is a question here about what happens when we don't get there. If the resident, if Vicki keeps saying it and keeps saying it, what can we do next? So I'm going to open that to both of you and help the folks, because sometimes it is a continual loop.
Okay, here's where we have to differentiate between different forms of neurocognitive disorder. With this old woman who is in her final stage of life, the woman I was role playing, she was trying to resolve unfinished issues. And that's sort of a key in validation, that's what we're looking for with that particular population. We don't divert and we never lie. We don't confront with reality, but we just go to the center. And what we find, it'll take too long to do it, but if it circles around over and over and over, usually when the person validating has not gotten to the emotional heart of what needs to get expressed. Even if you don't know what happened and the facts of the situation are not out in the open like they were here, if you can get to the emotional heart, oh, it hurts. It's painful. You're scared. You're angry. You're desperate. If you can share that emotion for the moment, truly share it, often the person feels heard. What lets an older adult living with what mom called Alzheimer's, because she didn't think it was really a disease process in very old people. And that's a differentiation with people who have Alzheimer's who are younger, or people with Lewy body dementia, or all the others. Sorry, now I've lost my track. See, you're not the only one, Joanna. I lose it all the time. But I think I've answered the question. What do? You take a breath and you try to get back into it and really find the emotional core of the issue.
Vicki, there is a statement or in the chat. Sometimes people will say, oh, so-and-so called, your daughter called, she's going to be late. And sometimes that resident or person living with dementia will say, oh, okay, and kind of walk away, or in the moment, it works. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually want to turn that over to Joanna, because I bet you can answer that better than I. What do you think of therapeutic lying?
Not much. Although I have asked that my husband not give me needless information, things that are going to cause me distress that I don't need to know. Flat out telling me we're going to go get ice cream when we're going to the dentist, that's terrible, not acceptable. I think that omitting information that I don't need to be burdened with is a very appropriate thing for our relationship, our marriage, and where I'm at with my progression. But lying to me, especially the number one thing is he will never lie to me about really anything, but not about his health. If I see prescriptions and I say, how come I didn't know this? And he may have told me, but I don't want to be lied to. I mean, who wants to be lied to? I want to be supported in my job, whatever that job is, if that, and I have a job, and if that's to go let the kids in because I'm afraid they're going to be standing outside of the house, that's my job. So one way or the other, we're getting the job done. So is it going to be, is it going to be with kicking and screaming, or is it going to be my way?
Oh, Nancy, you wrote it in the chat. I was just going to say that. Would you read it? Say it out loud.
Oh, sure. Naomi always taught us that no lying is therapeutic. And then validation, we never lie, because the person living with dementia has an ability to know on many different levels. And on some level, they know you are lying. You destroy that trust, that they have the same emotions and basic human needs that we have. And we would not want someone to lie to us. That would erode trust. And Naomi said, we don't lie.
Mm.
Can I say something else really quick? Do we have time?
You bet.
So the other thing, and I know this isn't unique to me, but as our senses, some of our senses are dying off, some of the other ones are getting hyper vigilant, hyper something. So it's almost as if we truly do know what you're thinking. I mean, it's a really weird phenomenon because I never had that connection before, and now I feel, I don't know if it's vibration or I feel overly sensory available. And so that's why it's really important that what you say and do matches who you are inside, because we will know. We always know. And yeah, there's really no way around it. So please be transparent with us.
Thank you. That was
Thank-
gorgeous.
That was beautiful. And that is one thing that I think a lot of us have identified. EQ seems to go up. It seems like there are additional filters that many of us don't have. You, Joanne, are giving us an example of that, and that we have to be so sensitive to that somewhere deep inside, intuitively and due to your emotional intelligence, important.
I'm seeing some confusion in the chat, and that is, yes, we do join them in their reality by not confronting them, and we don't lie or pretend. Validation is the middle road. It's not saying it's correct or incorrect. It's just saying, my goodness, you're sad. My goodness, you need to get home to your children. Or you feel that you need to get home to your children if that feels more integral to you. And we come back to integrity and transparency and congruence. That's a big word that we use a lot. That's what you were saying, Joanna. Your words and your nonverbals have to match. So you have to be there in the moment if you want to validate, and you have to be non-judgmental, and you have to be willing to get into the feelings, because the feelings are true. Maybe the facts may not agree with your reality, but the emotions will always be true, and or the need, basic human needs. Great, I'm so glad that that was clear. You want to do one more role play?
Sure.
Okay. Do you mind if I skip one? I'm sort of feeling more in a different mood.
Sure.
Okay, now I'm still an old woman. I'm now 87, and I live at home with caregivers. And I don't like it. I really don't like it. You know, they keep moving my things around. I had it right here. I know it was here. I put it there, and now it's way, who knows? I think they took it home. I'm sure they took it home. Not all of them steal, but
they didn't take anything. They didn't take in all of your things are there. I promise all your things are there.
How would you know? How would you know? I got all my stuff. And you know, they're spraying they're spraying this stuff. They call it air freshener. It's not
Nothing is
air freshener.
nothing like that is happening.
I
All
can
your-
feel it. I can feel it.
They care for you. They care for you. There's no spray going on. There's no, you
I
all of
saw them spray.
everything is exactly as you like it. It's not.
This is not the way I like it.
Please, please calm down. Everything is
I
in
am
place. We'll
very
go-
calm. I'm very calm. I never get upset. You know that.
You used to not get so upset. You used to be so reasonable, but now you're no, everything is
I
going
don't
to
want
be
to talk to you anymore.
time for lunch. Let's go have something to eat and then we'll talk about it later. All right?
Burton. So, feedback from Joanna, Rita.
Somebody stole your stuff.
Damn right.
Somebody stole your, exactly, somebody stole your stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't like it when people steal from me. So I can see how you'd be upset.
Yeah. You are on my side.
I'm totally on your side. That's the only side that's right.
How did you feel when Nancy was trying to correct me?
Well, Nancy was wrong. I love you, Nancy, but why, instead of arguing with me, help me either find where I may have misplaced my stuff, although I know someone came in here and stole it. Help me with the next step of what happens after somebody's come in and moved my stuff around or taken it away and stolen it. That's what would have been helpful. And that to me is not lying to me. That is supporting me in that moment, which is where I live and stay, is in the moment. And so that's the only way you're going to get any kind of cooperation from me, is to move into my moment with me and help me with that.
Thank you. Rita?
I couldn't say it any better than you just did. Acknowledging is the key. And what you pointed out about using reality, and it becomes us versus them. It starts to become a little bit argumentative, not intended to be, but kind of goes that way. I saw one thing just quickly in the chat about isn't it hard when you try to go into this emotional thing? Could it feed the fire? And all I want to say to that is potentially a little, yes, but you're staying there with them in that emotion. And the other thing I want to say is you can't learn all of validation in this session. So it takes a lot of exercises and a lot of work to get to where Vicki, and especially where Nancy will show you in the next scenario. That's it.
I want to just make note. I started at this emotional level, and by the end of that little scene, I was up here. So dismissing my feelings did not reduce the emotion, it increased the emotion. I just want to point that out. So now let's answer this next question. What do? You ready, Nancy? Yeah. Okay. I had that right over there, you know? I had that folder, and it's a very important folder, and now it's gone. And they either moved it, or, you know, I bet one of those caregivers took it. I bet they moved it and just took it home with them.
What is it that you lost? It sounds important.
It is important. It's exactly important. It's my folder with all my contracts and all my overhead slides for it's all my work. It's all my work right there. And now it's gone.
And you've worked so hard to put it together.
I did.
And this was what you did. This was your life.
That's
Tell me what you did. Tell me what was in this folder.
I used to give workshops. And these workshops, I have a script that I sort of follow, and I've got overhead, you know, those overheads that you put on the machine, and it's sort of a guide and help for the people in the audience. And do you know that I once did a workshop for like 1,500 people.
Oh my.
Yeah.
What did that feel like?
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. I had a lot. I had a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Maybe you can give a talk here in our center. Would you like that?
Yes, I would, if the people will listen to an old lady.
Maybe. We could give it a try if you're willing.
I could go, the caregivers who are here can take me there. That would be fine.
Would you like to?
I would.
Great. I'm sure you were amazing.
Curtain. Perhaps I moved a little too quickly to resolution there. That's possible. But I was just following what felt right to me in that moment. It's not always so easy, but I should stop there and open it up to you guys. How did you feel?
Well, Nancy was on your side. So if you're just thinking about it in terms of how she was before arguing with you, you've got Vicky, Nancy. Now she's coming around to your side, right? Now she's coming around to your side and you're both trying to attack the problem. So it divides all this responsibility on Vicky to try to solve the problem. And you've got somebody on your side that supports you, believes you, is helping you, and is not making things worse. They're dividing that distress and bringing it from here to here. Now you don't have to do all the heavy lifting alone. To me, that is huge.
Thank you.
Nice.
Rita.
Ditto. Joanna, you're doing my work for me. We didn't see this to Vicky's, monitor of how much anxiety, stress, and anger she was feeling. Instead, we saw this. Nancy definitely was centered. She was hearing and absorbing, but she wasn't letting it affect her. She was there. She was strong. She was centered. She was asking open questions. Perhaps, and I'm not sure, when you went there, Nancy, maybe a question that had to do with, has your work ever been lost before? Has this ever happened before? Like once you started using some reminiscing about her past, how did you handle it when you couldn't find a folder before? Because that is a validation technique that might have helped her to tell you how she coped in the past. It can sometimes work. But other than that, you certainly brought what could have been like this to that.
But also I didn't want it to be about the folder. What I felt in the expression and the body language and what she was telling me was that it was about losing purpose, losing a role in life and not feeling like a whole person anymore. And so that's why I went that direction rather than focusing on the object itself. And I think when someone does that, they may not be talking about the actual object. It could be a symbol. It could be something that's deeper, and it goes to more of a basic human need.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. I mean, you literally, you saw the folder as a symbol of lost work or loss of purpose through not doing the work. And you even suggested perhaps you'd like to speak here. I can see where that could work. And Vicki she tuned into that. She wants that sense of purpose and work, right? So it worked. I wouldn't suggest you change it as much as if it occurs again or again and again, a little bit more about, did it ever happen that when you were working, you didn't feel prepared, things were lost, things were out of place? Because sometimes in the earlier stages or phases, that has a lot to do with truly feeling disoriented and expressing it. Yep. It was great. Vicki.
Any last thoughts on that, Joanna? Or Nancy? No, you're good.
But
Nancy?
Joanna, she has some relevant scenarios she'd like to share if we have time.
Only if we have time.
Absolutely, we have time.
Okay.
I need about 10 minutes at the very end, because I want to do an exercise with everybody, the 572 people who are watching or listening. And but please take it away, Joanna.
Thank you. Well, so this actually happened today. So I kind of I thought 572 people were going to be coming to our house today. So this was this morning. I just in the moment did what I would normally do when we were going to have guests in our home. I went to go clean the bathroom, and I was in there vacuuming the bathroom, and I was finishing up the bathtub also with the vacuum. So when my husband came in from outside, I said, I vacuumed the bathtub, and he said, I bet you did a really good job. And the reason I want to tell you that is it normally doesn't go that way in our house. And then when I got out and I saw you for the first session, you know, I mean, I remembered, I was like 572 people aren't coming over. Although if you guys came over, my bathtub's freshly vacuumed. But I knew that I was doing something different. I didn't know how to clean the bathtub in that moment. I just knew it was a surface that needed the hair sucked off of it. So I did it. And he didn't ask me why I'm cleaning the bathroom. He knew I was a little anxious about being with you today. I just wanted to do a good job. And then I forgot you weren't coming over. So I felt so good when he said that. And I told him, I said, it really perked me up. It leveled out my anxiety about the Zoom because you were proud of me. You know, you said you thought I did a good job rather than telling me that was dumb to vacuum the bathtub. Why am I even doing that? So it doesn't always go that way. And I wanted to just give you the couple of times it hasn't and a couple times it has. One time it didn't go that way. I had old medications that I wanted to take to Walgreens to, you know, turn in because they do something with them. And I had made a side comment on the way to Walgreens, you know, sometime while we're out, sometime I like to go to that store, Ross. Well, on the way to Walgreens, there was a Ross on the right side of the road, on the side that, you know, was convenient. And he just whipped right in there without even asking me and I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're supposed to go to Walgreens and get rid of these meds. I said, well, Ross is right here. It's convenient. I flipped out, totally flipped out on him. We pulled into the parking lot, screaming, yelling, and he didn't understand. It was convenient, right? It was on the way. Why was this a problem? Because I had to get rid of these medicines. That was the priority. I mean, I can talk to you about it now without having a meltdown and using cuss words, but it's just really hard when I can't take this and show you what's happening. So this is where this comes in, right? The heart to heart is really, it's not all fluffy. This is really what we're relying on now. And then now I'm going to give you a good one. I went out to check the mail at 2 a.m. in a snowstorm back when I was first diagnosed. And I got lost at the mailbox. And I opened up the mailbox and I saw that we had not checked the mail and our name was on the mail. So I walked back into the house and told my husband the next day what happened, and he called ADT and we got an alarm system, but he wasn't mad. He said, you know, that made sense that I was saying I was right. We hadn't checked the mail. And he was like, yeah, you were right. We hadn't checked the mail. He didn't admonish me saying, I can't believe you did that. I was sound asleep. And you know what could have happened? You could have gotten picked up. You could have froze to death. You could have died. It's like, and you think I'd be thinking of that in the moment? I was thinking we haven't checked the mail and I was right. We hadn't checked it. That's what this means. So that was good. He's a good husband in that moment. And then I just have 3 more. Can I tell you the 3 more? I had 3 goods and 3 bads. So then when he was a bad husband, was actually he's not bad that much. He's really good. So I was asked to leave my job in 2012 as a college professor. I have a PhD and I am used to kind of being in charge. So, you know, that kind of sucks at times when I don't get to feel that way. But my volunteer work over these last 8 years since I've been living with Alzheimer's has been the most important work I've ever done. So having said that, I was having a bad day and I needed him to do some things for me before I got on another really important Zoom like this. And he was having a bad day too. Go figure. Somebody else can have a bad day. And he said, well, that doesn't matter. You know, I don't have time for that. We just need to do the priorities. And I said, if you don't get this stuff done for me, I can't do my job. And he said, honey, you don't have a job anymore. I lost my shit. I had behaviors and that language. And in that moment, Vicki, Nancy, Rita, everyone, I felt like I have no value. I felt like he was telling me, I don't have any purpose in life. I don't have anything to bring to the table. I might as well not exist. And what he was really saying is, you don't have to worry about not being perfect because it's not like our livelihood is depending on you performing and doing your job perfectly. But what I heard is, I don't have value. And I take what I do so seriously, whether I'm getting paid or not, that it made me feel like I wanted to strangle him. I didn't. He's still here, by the way. So that's that husband. And then I'll give you the good husband. I'll end on a good note. So a few years ago, he went to a golf tournament. And while he was gone, I bought a new car. And the reason I bought a new car, and my mom was here with me, by the way, because apparently I needed supervision, but we needed a new car because we got 2 new dogs. We had crates. They didn't fit in our old car. And so while he was off playing golf with my dad, I got on the computer, and when he got home, we had a new car. And he wasn't mad. We still have the car. He said, this was really good. I don't know where the credit cards are anymore. Apparently I don't have access to those, but we have the car. It works for the family. And I mean, so I guess I'm just saying, I mean, pick your battles, because if it's not life or death, it's really not worth going there. And we need to operate from here now, because I can't trust this. And we need to communicate from this, heart to heart. Anyway, that's it. I'm trying not to break down.
I see it. What I want to also, what I get out of your stories is, as a care partner, as a spouse, whatever role you happen to have, you don't have to be perfect. I can make mistakes as a care partner. I can screw it up. And the next day I'll think, don't do that again. You know, let's try something else. So I found that very heartening. But
thank you.
The times when you felt met heart to heart, as you say, that's when the reality of whatever became less important, and the relationship and the communication became the focus. And I think that's what it's about. But it does ask from the caregiver. And now I'm talking to all the professionals out there. You have to make a choice. If you've got a task, and it's all about getting your task done, getting Mrs. DeClerc to go to the bathroom, or getting Mrs. DeClerc washed and dressed in the morning, then you're not focusing on where Mrs. DeClerc is in that moment. So sometimes, in order to reach our nursing or caring goals, we have to put those aside for a moment and just take the 2 to 3 minutes it takes just to get into their world and then see where it goes. And that's what your husband did those moments. He saw she's prepping. You did a good job. And then you could move on from there. I love those stories. Gorgeous. Thank you. For those of you who were at the first break, I led an exercise in centering. That's the most important, because if we aren't centered, if we're busy with our own thoughts and feelings, and I'm stressed out, and if it's I, then I can't be there. So that's why centering is the important first step. The second step is observing. And I'm sure that's what your husband did. Joanna, he took one look at your face. He saw your body, how you were breathing. He got into your world, so he knew what was going on, and he knows you. That's what Nancy did with me. She took on my facial characteristics. So I want to do an exercise with everybody, 558 people. Okay. And for those of you who are on camera and want to do the exercise, maybe you could turn your video off, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to express emotion without words. And I want you to observe it. And then, because nobody else can see you with your camera off, I want you to try to match what you see and see what happens. And if you want to write in the chat the emotion that you see, that would be very cool too. So, all right, here's the first emotion. Are you doing it? Cool. Happy, 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 happy is what I'm seeing that's great. So I gave you an easy one, huh? Let's do another one. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of things, pain, despair. Yeah, emotional pain. Did you feel it when you, now here's where the difference between mirroring, calibrating, pacing, matching, all these words are used for what we're talking about, which is one way of getting into the emotion of somebody is to match their facial expression, their breathing, their voice tone. Okay. Is that a useful exercise? You can do it with all the emotions. Oh, fine. Good. So our little team thought of what would be a very nice ending to this final session. And we thought we would give it to Naomi with her final words. So Charles, if you can cue up Naomi's final message with sound. Cool. Take it away, Naomi. I have a funny question. I have a funny question for you.
Okay.
When you do die,
Yeah.
what should we say to all the people who love you? What should we say to the validation community?
That Naomi died knowing that the validation community will continue her work. Validation will not be lost, but it will be practiced by workers throughout the world. And it will benefit very old people who have a memory loss, that the word dementia will not be used as so much, rather memory loss. And Naomi wants to thank you all for continuing in her footsteps, that it made her fear her death be a joy rather than a sadness, but a joy that people understood her work, did not misunderstand it, but understood it and continued in her footsteps with her energy and spirit.
I think those are good words to end on. Let's continue stepping into the shoes of people who live with cognitive decline. Any last words from Rita, Nancy, Joanna? Don't have to.
Thank you, everyone who chose to be here. It makes a difference.
Gratitude. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Nancy.
Join us in continuing Naomi's legacy. An extraordinary person whose goal in life she achieved by making a difference with real people in real time, by developing a method that really works.
Gratitude to everyone, and especially to Naomi. Her legacy will continue.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all for being part of this fun session.
Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you.
Okay. Charles, I turn it back to you. And Brian.